Appreciate you just coming on the podcast and sharing some time with me here today.
Heck yeah.
Cool to get to talk to you. It's you definitely have a lot of unique experiences. So I think it's very interesting. Definitely what you've been up to.
Yeah, man. It's been quite a ride the last few years. Obviously, as my entire adult life has been an interesting experience. I
Yeah.
guess
Yeah.
living
That's
the
pretty
American
cool.
dream.
There
Yeah.
you go.
Hey, what's going on? I'm Ryan Weaver, a retired Blackhawk aviator, United States Army warrant officer, Chief Warrant Officer 3, retired. Was in for almost 21 years, but while I was on active duty, I started chasing my dream in country music. And as a small American business owner with multiple partner brands across the nation, my cowboy boots on Boot Barn shelves and Nordstrom online. Super excited about being able to live the American dream in these great United States of ours because of the sacrifices of our heroes. And here I am today. I guess I would say living the American dream every single day and loving life. Can't complain one bit.
That's pretty cool, man. Like we were saying before, it's cool that you're actually out there and you're taking advantage of all the opportunity that we really have here in America. And you said that music was something that, it's your dream. It's something obviously that you're passionate about. Did that start from an early age, or did that kind of develop in later on in life?
It actually didn't. I didn't realize it was something that I enjoyed doing until I was in flight school in 99, 2000. And I was broke going through flight school because you had to pay all the bills and take care of business while you're going to flight school and buy all these other things. And really didn't have a whole lot of money to spend on extracurricular activities. So I'd go do karaoke for fun and entered into a karaoke competition and actually won, which was the first time I ever did. And it's something I was extremely entertaining, had a great time doing it. And it had progressed obviously since then, but yeah, I was late in my 20s when it actually started. And it's kind of funny because I always look at artists in Nashville and the folks that have made it into the big, I would say the big leagues, top 40 artists, those kind of things. Everybody has some kind of a story and background, different background. And mine started in country music, significantly different than most artists out there. But a lot of them, you hear about them, they're tiling roofs, they're, in construction, working one job doing this, and then, chasing that dream and then get discovered. And my situation was just a little bit different even than that. So kind of a unique background when it comes to the music scene anyway.
So growing up, was music something that, even if, you didn't never think it was going to be the path you went down, was it something that you were, growing up, it was like, oh, I want to hear this song and I want to get this album. I love these artists. Like, was that something as a kid you were, interested in?
I grew up listening to all different kinds of music. My oldest brother, Steve, he, would listen to Steve Miller Band, the Eagles, Journey, all those great bands from back in the 70s and 80s. I love that music. I love listening to stuff. Yeah. But then when I started getting into middle school and high school, the boy bands started being huge, and I love to dance as well. So, I would listen to all different kinds of music out there. I really didn't actually start listening to country music until the 90s when Garth Brooks was really huge, and the country music scene started blowing up really in the early 90s. And that was when I was stationed at my first duty station in the military at Fort Leavenworth in Kansas. So it was, I can't say that I played the violin multiple years as a kid, on and off. I was only in one like singing, acting play or I guess musical, I guess is the best way, because it was kind of a musical, but that was back in elementary school, and it really wasn't something I was super passionate about until I grew up and found out that it was something I was actually decent enough at to be able to make a living.
And growing up, did you sing any, like, just riding in the car? And did anybody ever comment like, "Oh, you have a pretty good voice," or did your voice kind of develop later on too?
It never really, I mean, honestly, I'm not one thing that I always tell everybody when, they ask me, I'm not a trained vocalist. I'm not the best vocalist in the world. I would say that the performance parts of my show are, the entertainment piece. That's one thing that I love about Garth Brooks. His entertainment value, just being able to connect with an audience and entertain an audience, as far as I'm concerned, is just as, if not more important, than being a super strong vocal. You want people to have a great show. I try to do the best, obviously, that I can as far as my vocals are concerned, but the entertainment piece is something that's valuable to me.
Yeah. And I think that's something that so many artists today, whether that be country or not, are realizing it. It has so much to do with the feeling, the emotion of the experience of music, and not necessarily like, who has the best voice. And it's interesting because we have these shows like The Voice, or what's the other one? The one that most people
American Idol.
American Idol, yeah. And all these different things where it's like it's based on your voice, but now it just seems like, especially I guess with the emergence of like YouTube and all these other things where platforms are becoming so much more available, you see artists and really probably just creators in general dipping their toes in music, and they have good personalities, they have good, like you said, just performing skills, and they can kind of take it to the next level without actually being, like you kind of said, a trained artist like that.
Well, I mean, I will say that obviously it takes some level of talent to be able to get to a higher level, to a higher level of, I guess, success when it comes to the music business. I mean, but the thing is, I live in Nashville, and you can go to every bar downtown and you're going to hear an incredible vocalist. You're going to hear incredible musicians. They're every big fish in their little pond where they came from comes to Nashville, and then they become a little fish in a big pond. And the performance aspect of it is extremely important. Nowadays the money really isn't in the music itself anymore, because streaming is like 0.0007 cents a stream, and the money is really in the live performance aspect of it. And I think that and I mean, there are amazing artists like George Strait, who, because he's the king, he can stand there and just be George Strait. But a lot of folks nowadays, the performance aspect of it, if you don't have that performance to go with it, you're not going to be as appealing because of that live performance necessity for income stream. So yeah, absolutely, it's an extremely important part.
Yeah, and it's interesting you mentioned George Strait. Somebody else, and it's funny because he's one of my favorite artists, is Eric Church, and my brother went to see him. He saw him like the day before I did, and we had completely different experiences, but it was the same show basically. And he was like, right, he just wasn't this, like, he didn't really put on a show. He, his music was good. And I guess just because I'm a super fan, I didn't really see that into it. But it's interesting, in this conversation, it kind of brings back what he said, is like, he was a big Eric Church fan, and he still is, but it wasn't the performance that other artists, sometimes give. And it's interesting that, we take that away from music just because it is, I think, on the surface level, it's, music is it's to our ears, but really it's to all our senses.
Right. I mean, I've seen Eric Church perform live as well. I performed at the Charlie Daniels Volunteer Jam here at Bridgestone Arena in Nashville. And, I watched Eric Church. There's he's got this, air about him when he comes on stage. He commands the stage by standing there, and he's also got amazing songs that tell stories of people's lives. And there's every artist has a different approach to it, and to each their own. I don't discount anyone that listen to Chris Stapleton get up on stage and he kills a guitar and has an incredible vocal, and he and Travis Tritt actually sound very similar. I've been on stage with them live as well, and their vocal performances really draw you in and keep you there. If anybody's seen Chris Stapleton on stage, he's a standstill artist, but he's got that voice and that power to be able to connect with an audience in the way that he connects with an audience. And for me, I bounce around on stage. If any of your listeners have ever seen Sawyer Brown, their lead singer. He's like me, as a pogo stick out on stage, just having a good time and dancing around. And I'll wear myself out in a good hour and a half show. So yeah, it's a great thing.
Yeah, when it comes to like the aspect of entertaining and just being all around the stage and having that high energy, is that something that you have to like stay physically in shape for, or is it just kind of come naturally to you? How do you handle that kind of high intensity?
I always say that in my shows, if I don't hurt myself, not in a major way, but some kind of minor injury by the time, because I get crazy all over the place, but that I've underachieved for the night. But no, it's yeah. I mean, I'd have to keep in shape. You have to keep physically fit. Cardio is used to be my strong suit because I was a runner, and in the military I ran. I ran all the time, and as I've gotten older, the cardio is not necessarily my favorite thing to do anymore. But it's important. I mean, I think I did a performance out in Prescott, Arizona, a couple weekends ago. It was it's already been a month. Craziness. About a month ago, and you're at an altitude, and you don't realize that your cardio needs a little work once you start bouncing around at altitude, and it's you get I got a little winded, but I'm honest about it with the crowd. I'm like, goodness gracious, I should have probably ran a little bit more before I did this. And they think it's funny, it's just a genuine connector with them. So yeah,
that's cool. That's cool to hear. It's interesting. I think a lot of people don't make that connection between like fitness and health in general and other people's profession, other people, what they're doing. It's right. I think it really does play some sort of role, at least in almost anything you do. It's not just for athletes. It's not just for, first responders or military. I think everybody can definitely benefit from just maybe taking their fitness to a little bit higher of a standard. And it's cool that you keep up with that as well.
Well, I mean, outside of the show itself, the marketability is important. One of the things that somebody told me when I first came into town, they said, there are 1,000 people that come into Nashville a day with a guitar and a dream. And there are 1,000 people that leave Nashville a day with a empty guitar case because they had to sell it so they could get home because they didn't learn about the music business. There's a lot of passion. You have to have passion when it comes to being an artist, and that's what's going to keep you here. But, even when things get rough, if you're passionate about it and you stick to it, but you have to be able to figure out how to market yourself as a sellable product. Because really it's not called the music passion, it's called the music business. And you have to figure out what route you're going to take when it comes to that, what kind of look you're going to have, and being in shape and being fit, obviously is a marketable aspect for a male country music artist.
Yeah, that's definitely another aspect to it.
And a female country music artist as well. But
yeah, certainly. But yeah, like you said, it's really an industry. It's a business. It's something that you have to think about at different levels other than just, is, am I a good singer? Can I create a good song and all that stuff? It's definitely, there's so much to it. And I think, whether you're in music or podcasting or, you're some type of other artist or whatever your industry and business is, there's so much more to it than just being good at the craft itself.
Yeah. I mean, it's a wide ranging career field, but it is visual. It's visual. It's also, audio. I mean, all the different things, sounding good, having great products put out there, being marketable, visually pleasing or visually unique, I guess is the best way of saying it, so that you're a unique product selling to the audience. That's really what it's all about.
So being in Nashville, do you see that there's a lot of people, and I guess it probably doesn't necessarily matter the era, but do you see a lot of people who come in and try to maybe like be themselves at first, and then they say, I can't figure it out. So they try to be like the big artist or somebody who they look up to as well, and it just doesn't fit because it's not who they are?
Well, one of the things that I have noticed, it's interesting when you write a song and folks say we need something new, we need something fresh, we need something different, and then the next song that comes out on the radio is the exact same lyrical content, it's the exact same chord progression, it's the exact same thing, but with a different artist doing it. And I mean, when the business finds that they're making money off of something, they're going to tend to keep doing that until it's no longer making money, when they have to make change. Of course, something, you know, new, fresh, and different is all everybody's trying to do. But yes, I could see how you end up chasing who, like when I first got into the business, Jason Aldean was big, Hicktown was out. I'm still a huge Jason Aldean fan and his music. I love his stuff. And I have that rock background, so the rock and edgy country for me was the kind of stuff that I like to do, and it's what I still do. I have kind of an 80s rock influence with my music. My lyric content is different because I didn't grow up on backwood dirt road pickup trucks, you know, underneath the moonlight with the fireflies, you know, drinking a Coors Light on my pickup truck tailgate with my girlfriend in cutoff jeans and flip-flops, you know, while we're fishing on the riverbank. You know, all that stuff, I didn't grow up that way. So I try and write songs that are, for me, are lyrically genuine to who I am, motivational, those kind of things, and patriotic on some accords. Not necessarily every one of my songs are a patriotic kind of song, but you know, it's even then, you know, trying to emulate some of the stuff that he was doing back then, because I really liked it. And then when Eric Church's Chief album came out, that was another great one. Personally, one of my favorite albums that they're out there. But then you have Travis Tritt, who I've seen him live. His vocals are just off the charts. He is my favorite artist by far. I love Garth Brooks, but Travis Tritt, it just there's something about going through flight school, listening to his greatest hits album the whole time. And when you start trying to develop what kind of a show you're going to have and what kind of a performance you want to have while you're entertaining, you have to not just be entertaining, but watch how the crowd is responding to what you're doing and what things work and what things don't. Because trust me, I've done a lot of things on stage that have bombed. I've done a lot of, but you have to try. There are certain things you just have to try and see if it works or not. And if it doesn't work, you don't do it again, or you try to adjust it to see if massage it, because it may seem like it could work if it was in the right circumstances. You know, like getting up on tables and walking around, you know, out in the audience was always one of my favorite things to do, and it worked really, really well. You're in their face and it's interactive. That always was one of my favorite things to do. But then you start moving to the bigger stages, and I know I'm going off on a little bit of a tangent here, but you start getting to those bigger stages, and then you have to go back to, folks will end up going back to looking at this artist or that artist or whatever it is when they're not able to get out in the crowd. And that's one thing you can't do, because unless you've got, you know, a walkway to be able to get out there. And if you can't do that, so how do you still get that engagement from the crowd, and what kind of things really make that connection? So, I mean, you know, and going to writers' rounds here in Nashville was a big learning experience for me, because listening to the stories that the writers would tell about the songs that you've heard on the radio, when the artist that actually recorded them didn't write the song, but it was written for them. Well, when you hear you know, those stories and how they can incorporate that into a show, and how that brings the audience in, you know, you start throwing that, sprinkling those little things throughout your performance and whatnot. But, you know, chasing, nobody obviously wants to be exactly like other folks. You know, what can you do to be different than anyone else? I actually, one of the things I'll tell you, I actually have had a cowboy hat for all of my music career. And for the first time, these next two songs that I've got that we're working on in music videos, I'm actually moving to the ball cap look. Just because, honestly, the music is going to have a little bit of a different sound to it. It's going to have more of a rock edge to it, so it can be cross genre. We're trying to, and I'm not having to change who I am, because that's what I listen to. That's the kind of music that I love. So I'm not trying to sound like anyone else in that regard. I'm trying to sound like me and evolve as an artist as well. So the look's going to be a little bit different, but it is what it is.
You mentioned Travis Tritt, you mentioned Garth Brooks, but is there anybody like that is maybe a little bit younger in in today's music industry that you kind of look up to, not necessarily look up to, but think, okay, this person's really doing something pretty cool. They're doing something pretty different. Maybe, is there anybody like that out there now who might be like maybe sort of an influence on you today?
I mean, quite honestly, I've been doing this since 2006. So, I I really got a good taste of what the music business is about by moving here and seeing how that went down, or how it all goes down, and the way that the music business has changed. And I mean, as far as younger artists are concerned, I can't really say that there's anybody that's out there that is one of the newer artists that that I mean, you can learn something from everybody, but the artists that are out there. The one thing that I really started seeing when I moved to Nashville that was one of my biggest learning experiences was when I started writing in town, and when I started writing my own music, and learning how being more a multifaceted artist, as opposed to just the performance parts of it, or the writing part of it, because you got a lot of songwriters that are in town, and that's what they do. They write songs, and they're not out there to try and perform. And then you have some of those that are songwriters that are performers, but then you have some of those that are artists first, and then other people write their songs. There's just so many varying aspects to what an artist can be. And looking at the Jeffrey Steele's, I don't know if you're familiar with Jeffrey Steele, but he wrote What Hurts the Most, My Wish, Me and My Gang, Big Deal, Cowboy and Me, Hell Yeah, Chrome, Speed, Help Somebody. I mean, he's massive hit songwriter, Country Music Hall of Fame songwriter. And I would say that the way he conducts himself on stage, his performances, his songwriting is off the charts. That kind of he took me underneath his wing for a couple years when I first moved into town, and kind of gave me some great advice on what I should be doing, and continuing to move forward in the way that I feel as an artist I should be moving forward. And then for me, I would like to be able to say that some of the younger artists that are out on the radio and are that kind of do have that, give me that inspiration, but I can't think of any of them right now that would probably be somebody I'd want to emulate. I mean, the guys and gals who have, like, the Rebas and the Dolly Partons, and those folks who have made a brand out of their names and made a brand out of who they are. That's really, for me as a business owner and a small, not just a country music artist, but this small business owner and partner brands, having my name, my own tequila, my own boots, all those kind of things. That's the kind of business person that I want to emulate, or that I would look up to and respect in that regard. I'm not a young pup, so I don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that I don't respect these other artists, because they're out here working their tails off doing what they're doing. But I would say that Jason Aldean, Luke Bryan, those are probably the youngest generation of folks that have their own restaurants downtown, that kind of thing. Those are, I would say, looking at them, they're inspirations.
So do you see that, like, that level of success in the music industry, is that where a lot of people strive to be, to then, like you kind of said, push your brand out there to different avenues? Is that kind of like what the end goal of music maybe is for a lot of artists?
Well, I think that the younger artists that are in town, when they're just trying to make it and be seen and be noticed. I think that even when I first started, I wanted doors to be able to, doors to open so that I could get in and sit down in front of somebody and talk to them about it. And as I started getting further along into the business, I started realizing where the money was, like what was going to pay my bills. If it wasn't live performances, what was really going to pay my bills? CD sales were essentially disappearing. The 99-cent digital download has already started disappearing as well. What was I going to do out, to make this more of a broad spectrum career than just a walking down a narrow hallway of me being an artist trying to perform on stage. And I think I think a lot of artists, if they can look at their careers and immediately start getting into, okay, I need to establish myself as a brand and not just as an artist that's singing, those kind of things. Because if I didn't look at myself as a brand, the Weaver Country brand, the W that's behind me here, if I didn't start that, I mean, I started the Weaver, that this W was drawn back in 2006. And it's on my boots. It's on the heel of my boots. It's on my shirts. It's on my leather. It's on my tequila now. I thought about that Weaver Country brand back then. And had I not started those relationships with other companies and partnered with them and increased my brand awareness in that regard, COVID would have absolutely destroyed my career. I would have been done because we did 2018 and 19. I did 24 arena shows and 3 in Australia, 24 in the US and 3 in Australia. Was scheduled for 4 more in Australia, potentially 5 for 2020. And I went from that to 2020 with one event, and that was it. One speaking engagement, because I do motivational speaking as well. And had I not had these other brands out there, that were targeting the essential worker, the first responder, military, law enforcement, essential worker demographic, I would not have been able to pay my bills. I would have been in trouble. And there are a lot of dreams that got destroyed in this past year by, for artists that come into Nashville and, they're not able to do music because Nashville got completely shut down. And I'm glad to see that it's open now, which is amazing to see. It was awesome to see. But this past weekend, but those folks that came in and are specific to music and they focus on music and they want to play downtown and be seen and discovered and try and make a living that way. It's a grind. This is a 10-year town, and there are a lot of folks that I look at 10 years ago when I first started coming into town. Or after I had been coming into town for a couple of years, and I had already started establishing that brand at that point. So, I can't say that I've got the answers to everything, but I can say that my bills are paid.
Yeah. And it's crazy. Like you said, so many people, their dreams were crushed in so many different ways with that. So, I mean, yep. And then nobody would know, but just, it's crazy to even think like, who could have come out of those people who weren't able to, do what they do and build their career and, see them in 5 or 10 years and they become, the next whoever,
Never know.
It's crazy.
Somebody told me of some of the best advice I got coming into town. Someone said that this business is about who you know and how much money you have. And it was like, so it's not about talent. And I said, you're going to see that there are some people that are not the most talented individuals, but somehow they make it. And then you'll see some of the most incredibly talented people that don't make it. And if you think about 2020, the who you know is just as important, if what's more important than how much money you have, because anyone in Nashville that's in the business will spend somebody else's money. They got no problem with that. But the right person and the right connections and getting involved with the right people is extremely important to find success. And now a lot of folks can listen to my story and say, well, you don't have a song on the radio, you don't have management, you don't have any of that. Then there are different levels that you can gauge success. As far as I'm concerned, with no formal management, no formal record deal, no song on the radio. I played from T-Mobile Arena in Las Vegas, replacing Steven Tyler from Aerosmith as the headliner, with nobody knowing who I am, to my first show in 2018 being Madison Square Garden, to having my own boots, to having, all these things in a career without the money behind me as well. I didn't have the money behind me. But the who you know in that circumstance, I was in the right place at the right time. And Sean Gleason, the CEO of the PBR, saw the show, knew my background, knew my story, my family's sacrifices, my time in the military, and it fit right in with what they do in the PBR, which is honor our heroes. So it was a great timing. But had I not gotten to get out to that show, or I didn't meet this person to get to that show, or I didn't release Burn, my music video with the Benghazi heroes, and all these different things, those step by step, those were all the who you knows, because that was a big who you know situation that changed my life.
Yeah. So kind of talking about your military experience a little bit, was the military something that you thought, this is the route I'm maybe going to take as a kid, or how did you end up going down that path?
Well, my whole family has military service. My grandfather was a belly gunner in World War II. My dad was a Marine. My oldest brother, Steve, was Army Ranger. My other brother, Aaron, was an Army Ranger. They both got out, but at 2 years of school, went back in and became aviators. Aaron called me. I was a recruiter. But I mean, before, it was pretty much, we came from humble beginnings. And, going to college for us, and unless we were going to get a scholarship on for something, the ability to go to college was not in the cards, just because we didn't have the money to be able to do it. And when you have your older brothers that you look up to and you followed in their footsteps pretty much all your life, you see them go into the military. It was a no-brainer for me. I went a different route. I went military intelligence, and they went into the Ranger Regiment. They got out, went 2 years of school. I got stuck on recruiting duty about 9 years into my career, and my brother Aaron called me from flight school and said that they had changed the vision standards. I ought to think about putting my packet in for flight school, and recruiting duty in the Army sucked. It was the worst job ever, and I was ready to get out of it. And I put my packet in the next month and was gone the month after that. So it's pretty. It was a pretty quick transition from being an enlisted intelligence analyst and stuck on recruiting duty to being a warrant officer and flying helicopters.
Yeah, definitely. That seems like it would be. And when you said they switched up the standards, the vision standards, was that just due to an increase in like technology, or why would they do that? Something like that?
I mean, I don't know what the decision was for. It may have been because they had a shortage of aviators at the time. I'm not sure, but it was 2050 correctable to 2020. So even the 2050, what you didn't have, there are still certain vision things. And if you had, any kind of other eye issues, whatever it may be, that's the biggest thing. Obviously, that is a problem when it comes to flying stuff. But yeah, they changed it. I think that because they realized that you could actually wear glasses and fly, but you want to, if your glasses happen to fall off your face. And yeah. But I mean, then they started, doing PRK and different things like that, and LASIK, allowing that. It's getting selected and going to flight school, and people that actually want to go or even know about the programs. It's they need the numbers, they need the pilots, they need those folks in there. And that's the military for you. The standards always get easy when the numbers get low.
Yeah, I can imagine. Yeah. Yep. So was aviation, was that something too that you were super interested in, or, was it just along the way, oh, this seems interesting? Like, how did, that's not your typical, it doesn't seem like it would be your typical route.
Well, my oldest brother, Steve, I was still in high school when he became an aviator. So he was already flying. So it was already something I was getting, I was exposed to in that regard, learning. I mean, obviously that's cool. Your older brother who's one of your biggest heroes in your life, is flying helicopters in the military. And then, for me, I didn't want to go the Ranger route because it just wasn't, that lifestyle was not the way that I wanted to go. And my brothers were both super studs, and I was a skinny little 128 pound kid going into basic training. So, and, I went in the military intelligence route, but it was definitely something that I was always interested in. I tried to put my packet in early in my career, and something was wrong with my pupil dilation. And then I just, I didn't keep going through the process. So that's the reason why Aaron called me and said, you ought to think about putting your packet in again and seeing what happens. So,
gotcha. Yep. So throughout your military experience, at the beginning, you kind of mentioned your karaoke experience, but was music at any time throughout when you were in the military? Was it like kind of a mental getaway? Did you ever, jot a lyric down? Like, was there any part of you that was in that way when during your military service?
Um, I always have been a writer. I say a writer, but I can't necessarily say a great writer in that regard. But I wrote I always wrote poems and short stories and different things in school before I went into the military. But honestly, until I did that karaoke competition in flight school, the performance aspect of it, it was, I think I had sang karaoke maybe 2 or 3 times even before I won that one. And it was kind of like, wow, this is something I really love doing. Is this something? And people obviously think I'm good enough or entertaining enough because I ended up winning. So, I mean, that's where I found the passion. I mean, I went to Germany, was restationed to Germany after flight school and did karaoke for fun over there. And then when I was deployed to Iraq in 2003, one of the soldiers in our unit brought his guitar with him, and we started writing and that kind of stuff. And Mark Wills and Daryl Worley and them came over on a USO tour. And, I was really started becoming fascinated with that because I had done several karaoke competitions by the time that I got through flight school and won. And, this one was, once I started writing in Iraq, it was, then it was like, okay, now that I know that I like to write, I've always done it. I'm starting to figure out what this guy was helping. We were working through the song structures and different things like that. And then when on January 8th of 2004, my brother Aaron, who I mentioned earlier, he was a cancer survivor, was non-deployable, got a waiver to be deployed, but he had to get bi-monthly blood screenings for the cancer to make sure that it didn't come back. And he had to fly to Baghdad Hospital every time to get these bi-monthly blood screenings. And he was flying from Al Taqaddum, just southwest of Fallujah. He was flying in the back of a medevac helicopter to one of those bi-monthly blood screenings when it was shot down and everyone was killed in action. And we became the first-time Gold Star family at that. And when I redeployed back from Iraq, it's 2 years of my life that just turned. I mean, it was a fog, and I just decided that. I followed in Aaron's footsteps and Steve's footsteps. I followed in their footsteps pretty much my entire military career. I took a different route on the military intelligence, but their standards of performance and success were my standards of performance and success. And then when Aaron died, it was I didn't have really footsteps to follow after that point. So I decided to start making my own footsteps and living in his honor and chasing a dream and something that I really love doing, and found more passion as I, after those singing competitions and doing it for fun, and then writing and all that. And so I just started going after it. And that's really what got me into it, that got me into the music business.
Yeah. And I think it's interesting. Like you mentioned just the competitions, and I talked to another guy who was in the Army, and he talked about the powerlifting competitions.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's so interesting when you're don't have any of that experience in the military, and you're sitting back here, in America, and you think about what a soldier's going through. I don't think we think about them as like individual people with different talents, different skills, other than what they're actually doing over there, and what they're obviously very important, but what their personality is and what they love doing. And it's so interesting to hear you say music, and other people say, lifting weights, and other people say whatever.
Right.
It's so cool to think about it in that way, because I think then you can appreciate it even more on another level, because the sacrifice that they are over there giving that sacrifice. It's not just like it's not a number anymore. It's a person with dreams and hopes and a family, and all this other stuff goes into it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if there's anything that I try to convey while I'm doing my live performances, is the human aspect. There's a very real human aspect to the military, and those that are left behind, the sacrifices that are made. But I also try and convey that in my live performance. I want people, when I'm doing my shows, I want them to, with telling them stories and with telling them about me and all the different things that I do in my live performances, I want them to feel like they could be standing on stage with me as a normal human being that's just getting to live the dream, getting to chase this dream. That's important, and that gets lost in translation and a lot of the Hollywood stuff that you see out there, that's inaccurate depictions and whatnot of our military, like they're just robots and whatnot. It's kind of like the same thing with law enforcement as well, that they're just robots. When I've got law enforcement in my family, and I've seen the very real side of sacrifice and the very real side of just wanting to come home to your family at night. So, yeah, I agree with you 100%.
So when you compare, and it's probably not comparable, but when you compare like a moment of stress, like a military environment, does it compare at all with like the stress of going on stage to perform in front of a huge crowd?
No, I mean, I get excited. I have this, I get super pumped. I think that the smaller crowds really, like, say at the Bluebird Cafe where they're sitting right in front of you and there may be 30 people in the room. Those are much more taxing. The most stressful national anthem I ever sang was on going back to my high school and singing on the 50-yard line for a high school homecoming game. That was more stressful than to me. It's still an excitability thing. I don't get nervous anymore. I get excited. It's almost like, you're going to go out and do the thing that you love to do. And I get excited about making people forget about their lives. If they're having a bad day or they're having a bad time in their lives, 3 minutes and 10 seconds at a time, as they say, with the song and each performance. And, we, before we do our shows, full band shows, we have what's called the Weaver Country Huddle, and my boy Trey McCampbell leads us in prayer. And then I always tell them every single time, gentlemen, this is the last show you're ever going to play. Treat it like it, because you never know if you're going to step off that stage and step back on it again. And nothing's ever a given. If anybody knows that, I do. And we treat every single show that way. So it's like, it's just a pure try and make it, depending on whether it's a 30-minute show, a 45-minute show, or an hour and a half show, just pure adrenaline, pure fun, genuine connection with the crowd. And for me, that excitability is what drives me every single time. There are two places I would tell you that I feel the most at home. One, being with my wife, sitting on the couch watching television, and two, being on stage.
It's like you have so much stuff going on, so much probably just on your mind constantly. What do you do? You kind of mentioned sitting on the couch with your wife, but what do you enjoy doing outside of those things that are kind of obligations? Even though you might enjoy them, they're kind of obligations. What do you enjoy just kicking back, relaxing? What do you enjoy doing to do that?
I go to the gym probably 6, sometimes 7 days a week. I enjoy working out. I'm on social media all the time because it's part of my, selling my brands and expanding my reach on social media. I love to do writing appointments, but I mean, hanging out with friends and just chilling and having a good time with friends, for me, that's just it. Don't get me wrong. I love doing super exciting things like, going on vacations and all that. That's always amazing. But on a day-to-day thing, just chilling and watching, like I said, watching TV with my wife and doing, I don't sleep very well as it is. I haven't slept very well for quite some time. I'll sit there and stare at the ceiling, thinking about what I should have done or what I didn't do that day and what I got to do tomorrow. And then when I wake up in the morning, it's time to make the money, time to bake the cookies or whatever, time to make the donuts. And yeah, but that's just, relaxing with friends, I would say, is probably my one of the things I love to do the most. I love to hunt and fish during the hunting seasons and all that as well. I love bow hunting in particular, but shooting, you name it, anything that has to do with firearms, obviously. Can't say no to that.
So are you the kind of person that'll like have these kind of ideas come up where, like, if it comes to performing or comes to like a song, and they're kind of just constantly flowing through your head, and you're writing them down, putting in your phone, whatever it may be. Like, how do you get that inspiration? Does it just like kind of sometimes just come across your head? Like, how does that work?
I mean, ideas come from from all parts of my life. I mean, it just depends on what, if I hear something in a conversation between friends, or I'm thinking about this, or, if I'm on the road and I've got a long, hours to just stew in my own thoughts, there are just all kinds of different ideas come out. And there are some ideas that are targeted when it comes to the songs that we write, as far as what we're gonna be doing with who we can pitch the song to, if we can get it out there, what we're gonna do with the video, if we're gonna do a video, all these different things. And I've written so many songs with, in the past that I haven't cut them yet. And then we can massage that idea into something that's more, modern, and it's a constant creative process. But I just don't look at that, and as far as the music is concerned, I look at it as far as my brands or my partner brands are concerned, and always creating different avenues for income streams and partnerships with folks to advance the brand. All those, I think about that probably. I mean, I would say I think about that 100 times more a day than I do about songwriting ideas, to be honest with you.
With that being said, like, is there any, or has there ever been like an idea where it's been like, oh, I would love to do this, but because of these other things, it kind of doesn't match maybe with the bigger picture, but it's still something that like you wanted to do but couldn't have done because it didn't maybe flow with the whole big picture?
I mean, there's always, I think that every single idea that I come up with, 1 in 10 of them is worth a damn. But I keep coming up with different avenues to take and different things to do. I mean, it took us over a year to get my tequila that we just released this past week. It took us over a year to get all that, the design of the label, the kind of the way we wanted the tequila to taste. And it's actually called an agave spirit because we distilled it in the U.S. You can't call it tequila if it's distilled in the U.S. But working in partnership with another veteran company to make that happen, it took us a while. Along the way, when those ideas are happening, you're thinking about different ideas on top of that, and what the different directions that things are going to go. And you just got to keep moving forward. That's the thing. Once you quit, then why are you in the business? If once you stop coming up with new and creative things to do, that's where you really got to sit back and take stock and wonder why you're in the business and why you're doing what you're doing. Because if the longer you sit stagnant, it's pretty much you're walking backwards when everybody else is moving forwards if you're standing still.
Yeah. And has it seemed like over maybe the last year, 2 years, 3 years, just really, really recently, that you found it, maybe your brand and the kind of your niche audience has been becoming more supportive just because of kind of the divide in the, that social divide that we have seen?
Oh, yeah. The political climate that's out there right now, I started getting into political commentary and voicing my opinion. And as a former military service member, a 2-time Gold Star family, I did not mention that Randy Billings, my brother-in-law, was killed in action in 2013 on December 17th. And we became a 2-time Gold Star family at that point. This country means the world to me. The freedoms that we have in this great country because of the sacrifices of my brothers and others like them. The things that we hold near and dear to our hearts that people are all too willing to give up right now. I think it's important that we keep our voices loud and we keep them proud about what this great country stands for. And, when folks just tell me, Ryan, you're an artist, shut up. It just makes me louder. I want to be louder. I don't base my discussions and my questions off of the way that I feel about something. Give me legitimate facts. Give me legitimate resources. Give me legitimate reasons why you feel the way that you do. Not just give me your opinion and tell me to shut up, because that's what it seems like it turns into a lot of circumstances. And trust me when I say this, everybody's like, man, you get attacked all the time on social media because you ask people for the facts and you have your conservative opinions and you support President Trump and all these different things. And I tell them, there are two circumstances in my life, there are two moments in my life that I will never get worse than. And now it's three actually. When I found out that Aaron died, when I found out that Randy died, and having to take a shit in a porta potty when it's 180 degrees inside. I don't know if that's okay for me to say a cuss word on your podcast, but there's nothing like going to the bathroom when it's 180 degrees in a porta potty. It's just not going to get worse than that. And if you think anybody on social media is going to, make me emotional enough to care, that, or have my feelings hurt. There was on January 8th, this year, I got to see the true hate come out, because when I always honor my brother on January 8th, and it's really a rough day for me almost every single year. I try and get past it, but it is what it is. But the haters, there are no repercussions to what they say on social media. I like to try and have conversations with people about, even if they have differing views. I have so many friends that have liberal mindsets, and it doesn't bother me. We don't get in fights and arguments about it. We have discussions and about the things that we disagree on, and it is what it is. But social media takes that human side of it away. It really does. It takes the humanity out of it, and folks are just willing to say and do anything that they want. On that day, being the emotional as I already am, they came just attacking, and it was attacking a post about my brother. And I had enough that day, and I told them, a lot of folks to get bent on that one. But outside of that, they're great for engagement, I guess is the best way of saying it, because the algorithm is pretty clear on Instagram. If you have more comments, you're going to be the top comment on a bigger page. So I tend to bring the best and the worst out of people when it comes to my social media comments. But anyhow.
And it's funny when you talked about the people who want to say, you're just an artist, you don't know about this, or stop talking about it. But then kind of in a hypocrisy of the same kind of person who might say, oh, well, this artist believes this, so I'm going to support that, or this athlete, it's to me, it's just there's really almost no like rational thought to not necessarily one side or the other, but when it comes to anything, like the hypocrisy of like, this is wrong because this, but in the same way that this is wrong, it's also right for me to say that and to believe this. And
I think one of the things that not to interrupt you, I apologize, but I think one of the things that folks, in those positions of influence where they can change people's minds and get folks believing just because of who they are, there's a certain responsibility to provide legitimacy through facts, not just, hey, I feel this way about it. Because as we got to see with the last election and the whole year before that, when cities were burning to the ground, a lot of horrible decisions were being made based purely off of emotion and not reality. And I just, it's so easy to appeal to somebody's emotions and to get them to make decisions on things. It's so much easier to do that than it is to actually say, okay, here are the facts. This is the real information. It's not skewed by politics. This is really what it is. And that is I guess people can call me an influencer. I mean, I have not even close to as big a page as a lot of folks out there that I would consider influencers. But, I try to present that when I present what I put out there, to make sure that if there are young minds out there trying to make the decisions on their lives and how they want to view the world, that they see it not through a slanted lens, but they see it through a clear window. And then they can make their own decisions based off the information that they have. And even if it's from both sides of this perspective, it's still important to have that conversation. And of course, like you said, it just gets lost because people they open up their mouths and try and scream louder than the person that's trying to speak logic to them. And unfortunately, in today's day and age, it seems that the small minority group, or the small minority of the conversation, and I'm not talking about race, I'm talking about just a small group of people, seem to scream louder than the rest of everybody else. So they're the ones that are being heard, and they don't necessarily have the right perspective factually going on. So I try and bring that out. And I get banged on all the time. It is what it is. It doesn't bother me a bit.
I don't even know if it necessarily brings out what the good or bad in people, but I think it changes a lot of people for whichever way, the better or the worse. But yeah, it's interesting. So kind of look into the future, looking maybe with maybe the next 5 or 10 years, where do you see, your brand going and expanding and evolving?
Well, we've got a couple of music videos in the short term. I'll give you the 50-meter target, and then what I'm looking at down the line. But we have two. This will be the first year in my music career where I'll actually have 2 music videos and 2 new singles come out. I've only had 1 music video essentially a year, and skipped years in between, simply because of funding. That's really what it boiled down to. But we got 2 great music videos, 2 new songs that have a new fresh sound. It's got more of a modern rock edge to them. Excited about getting that music out there. 5 to 10 years from now, I want to have Weaver Country as a household name. I'd love to have my own clothing lines, the different brands on different whatever it may be, partnerships with other companies, getting them out into much bigger retail outlets, that kind of thing. And once all that stuff happens, I mean, I love the performances on the stage and I love doing the music, and I obviously would love to continue doing that, but I would rather be traveling around the world for the rest of my life with my wife, because my brands are our primary source of income, and doing well in that regard, because my wife has worked her tail off almost all of her life, and I've had a job since I was 13 years old. It'll be nice to get, in the next 10, 15 years, be able to say that I could do whatever I want to, and be able to relax until it's time to, relax at a high rate of speed, I guess, is the best thing. But hey, I'll tell you, if 10 years from now, if the performances are still there and I'm still loving it, and I always said the moment that I start walking out on stage and things, and I really don't look at it the same way that I've, with that eagerness and with that excitability, that it's time to hang it up and do something else. So, if anything, COVID this 2020 showed us and showed me is that focusing on those partner brands and focusing on my brands, is an extremely important part of my career outside of the music, and that the two really don't even have to be connected with each other to do that. I could do both of them separately. So that's, it's a beautiful horizon. That's all I got to say.
Yeah. It seems like there's definitely a lot of good stuff going on, and, great potential in the future. It's an exciting time, I think, for a lot of different people, with COVID restrictions, bans, and all this stuff trying to break
miraculously
free
starting to disappear because the elections are coming up.
Yeah, it's interesting. I'm sure you saw the Texas thing, but that's an interesting zero case thing. But yeah, it's I think a lot of people are getting back out there and pursuing what they want to really pursue now that they can do it again. And
right,
it's cool. It's a cool if you want to call it a reset. I don't really like that, but it's kind of a reset of here we go again kind of deal. So, but
we'll see, man. We'll see how it all goes down.
Yeah.
You know as well as I do that every 4 years and every 2 and every 4 years that all kinds of crazy stuff has to happen, because somebody's got to be able to make, it's all about power control and division. You know how that works.
Yeah. It's it seems like it's getting amplified even more, as we go along. It's just every time it's more and more.
Yep. Right on.
Crazy stuff. But man, I really do appreciate you coming on and sharing some time today with us here in the weight room. And if you want to let people know where they can find you, that'd be cool.
WeaverCountry.com is my website. All my socials are on there. But if you can remember Ryan Weaver Country, all one word, those are my 2 primary Facebook and Instagram accounts. I'm not on Twitter because I found it was pretty much, with all the filtering that they were doing in censorship, it was absolutely worthless to me, and I was wasting my time on it. But those, my Facebook and Instagram pages, that's Ryan Weaver Country on those. So
good deal, man. Well, like I said, I really do appreciate your time, and I appreciate your service and your sacrifice, and good luck with everything moving forward in the future with your music and your brand and everything. I look forward to following it and, seeing you grow. It'd be, it's really cool.
Right on, brother. Well, I appreciate you bringing me on, man, and best wishes for you.